Shadows of the Shroud is coming soon. In this video, we have further details, shipset art, portraits, and the schedule of the twice-a-week dev diaries coming next week. We also get the 4.0.23 update, further improving 4.0. Let's get into it. Breaching the Shroud. Reality is only one thread in a vast, trembling web. In Shadows of the Shroud, empires reach beyond the material realm, attuning to ancient powers and bargaining with entities that exist beyond time. Psionic auras ripple outward, warping systems and reshaping destinies. While the Mind Wardens wage silent war against the psionic corruption, the Shroud patrons gather their gifts as lavish as their demands. The deeper one delves, and harder it is to return. This sounds like a lot of lore-based stuff, but I think we can get a few mechanics out of that paragraph. Obviously, we know how the Shroud works. We breach beyond the material realm, and we attune to the ancient powers. And we kind of bargain with the entities that exist beyond time. Probably it's going to revamp the system and maybe give better buffs, more interesting buffs, and negatives. However, psionic auras will ripple outward, warping systems and reshaping destinies. Now, systems kind of get warped. I believe we just get those psionic entities, but maybe this is also revamping the system. Before the updates to the Ascension tiers, psionic was probably the more interesting one, so I don't think they need to do too much, just kind of bring stuff up to what we have now, which is hopefully what they're doing. And also reshaping destinies, not entirely sure what that means, could relate to what we just talked about. Mind Wardens, unless I'm going insane, sound like a new entity in the galaxy, and they're waging a silent war against psionic corruption, so maybe you can choose to help them fight the corruption, or they just help with the corruption, but there might be corrupt systems, maybe similar to how the Storms have the negative and positive debuffs, but they're more controllable, not as random. The Shroud patrons gather their gifts as lavish as their demands, so obviously we give gifts, and they will have demands, so maybe instead of just a negative, we might be told, go convert this empire, or who knows. Like, it sounds like there's going to be more quests, which we did see a lot with the High Fallen Empire, with some quests going on more, and we've seen it with other Fallen Empires. That would be nice. That does mix up the game. The deeper one delves, the harder it is to return. The more you go here, the more the effects will stick around. I'm not sure. Shadows of the Shroud is a major expansion that completes our Arc of Ascension trilogy with a comprehensive remastering of Psionic Ascension. Just like I was mentioning, they've revamped Biological and Machine Ascension. Silence is the last one. This is a smaller DLC, but like I said before, it doesn't need too much revamping. It's just getting elevated, hopefully, to the levels of Biological and Machine Ascension, which were huge and very good DLCs. We tapped Abracam for help with this one after their fantastic work on the Grand Archive and Astral Planes. I do agree they did smash those DLCs, especially if that's the first time they've been working on Stellaris stuff. Grand Archive added a lot of content, so did Astral Planes, and they're very lore-based, which probably suits Psionics with the stories and depth they can go into, so using their strong suit, I think. They've been working hand in hand with us for over a year on this release. This kind of partnership lets us keep several development tracks running simultaneously, so while Abracam brought their strength to the new expansion, our internal team could stay focused on updating the base game, what is it, 23 times now? I'm good at devs, I'm sorry. Addressing community feedback and work on long-standing issues. So essentially this means the dev team have not been working on this DLC, but instead been working on 4.0 and the updates. 4.0 is slowly getting to a good place. I do believe it will get there, so it's good they've had time to spend on that. When we first sat down to discuss the Shroud, we challenged Abracam to broaden the horizon of Psionic Ascension and the end of the cycle. That's very important. It's not just Psionic Ascension, it's also end of cycle, which I've never even had in game. End of cycle, I believe you just have to go kill stuff or you die, is it? I've not had it. Reading deeper into the tea leaves, already there, and channeling of thematic content. So just to basically just make Psionic Ascension and end of cycle up to scratch with the recent DLCs, which sounds really good. The task was to open our third eye to fresh possibilities and project new mysteries into the minds of players willing to pierce the veil. So lots of new content on top of this as well, hopefully. Over the next few weeks, we'll reveal more about Shroud exploration. The Ascension situation, we've got all the situations now. They are revamping it to a situation. New paths through the Shroud. Ooh, because I believe there's only 3 at the minute, so there'll be more paths. And it'll go over how you influence your relationship with the Shroud entities, plural. I guess there is more. If you can't tell, Psionic Ascension is probably my least played. But it introduced some minor patrons, as we have the major ones, which can give different buffs depending on what they are, and see what's in store for Gestalts in this expansion. Okay, the Gestalts can reach into the Shroud, that's huge, because that includes machines. At this time, we do not yet have a date to announce for Shadows of the Shroud and the 4.1 release. That is sad, but we do get a bunch of dev diaries which probably show when the release will be. Next up, we have 2 ship set art, concept art. Unfortunately, it's not a new ship set. We do just have destroyers. We can tell this because the biological ship expansion that actually changed the mechanics are completely renamed, but they still look sick. Very jagged, geometry based, but that destroyer does look really nice. I've come from the future because I realized the destroyers are the Mind Warden ships. Of the Psionics cruisers, still kind of confirm that we're not getting new mechanic ship sets. Back to past me. Then we have also the cruiser, which is not as geometry based. It's more like smoother. So maybe we're getting 2 ship sets with them. Kind of reminds me like something from Halo. I don't know why. Now, when are these dev diaries coming out? Well, they're switching to twice a week dev diaries. So we get 2 next week, 2 the week after, then 2 the week after that. The betting man would say it's either coming the 18th or the week after. We've also had the DLC last time was also released on a Tuesday, was it? So maybe around then. But it's looking like it's coming the end of September, which is very exciting. Now, the dev diary schedule. We have Shadows of the Shroud, probably just going over everything that's coming, and then we'll go into deeper looks in the future dev diaries, like Psionic Ascension and delving into the Shroud. Probably will walk through all these Psionic Ascension things. It'll be interesting to see if they stick with 3 different paths. As biological, a machine had that. Will it have the modular from biological ascension? Or will it be completely new mechanic to really set them apart? That would be very interesting. And we'll see if delving into Shroud gets a huge revamp or if it's just built on top of what we already have. Then we have entities of the Shroud and psionic auras. That sounds very, very interesting. The entities could mean leaders. Maybe we get ships. Maybe it's completely something else. And psionic auras, maybe it's to do with those systems, the effects, the corruption. Mind Wardens and machines. I don't know what Mind Wardens are. They have teased them. They're battling that corruption. We'll see what they do. Maybe they're like an NPC like how we have the Creator Order. We already have the Shroud Walker Enclave. Wonder how they'll interact. And then machines. How do the machines interact with this? I'm very excited to see that because I do like some machine gameplay. The end is near. The end of the cycle dev diary. It's got a whole one devoted to it. That sounds massive. Maybe it'll be a much more important mechanic. Could it be a crisis path? I mean, is it already a crisis path? I'm not sure. Like, it's not, but it's close to one. It was before the crisis were added to become the crisis. Maybe they've put it into the become the crisis. That would be very interesting, as it's kind of similar. The Reckoning has prevented our telepaths from divining the topic of this dev diary. I have not a clue what that could be. Yeah, not a clue. Not a clue. And then we have all the portraits here with a bunch of new ones. What stands out to me here is the one in the jar is very similar to the Toxide one. Is that a adaptive portrait or is that a new one? Because I think all the other ones look pretty new. There is a humanoid, but they could just be a psionic humanoid. It has been foreseen. This sounds like it's from Blueprints. Our next dev diary will be next Tuesday at 3 o'clock CST, a later one for them. I am very much looking forward to it. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of those dev diaries. Now, we also have the Shadows of the Shroud information on the Steam page. Interestingly, we do have 3 screenshots. The first one being a planet being absorbed by a wormhole. Is this end of cycle? Is this part of the corruption? Who knows? We then have a screenshot of the game showing new tech, old drones. By means of upgraded technology, we have been able to repair some of our older drones, restoring decommissioned units to full functionality, now ready to initiate large-scale repair operations. While we could focus on units from the collective, we have a larger supply of inactive Shroud Forge shells. Repairing the Shroud Forge will yield greater output, but they will be more difficult to control than drones connect to the core intelligence. Focus on output, repair the Shroud Forge. Focus on control, repair the controlled drones. This is also 8 years in. I don't know if they've gone an Ascension. They do have max Unity, so maybe they've rushed that with cheats. They are on a machine capital though, so this is a machine empire. So it looks like you've got robots gifted by the Shroud, or they've been Shroud forged. Could this be an origin? I don't know. There's also a purple dot in the bottom, which usually is something that hasn't been textured, so they've changed something down there. It's very interesting. We then have a screenshot from the same game at the same amount of time showing the Forged by the Shroud ticking situation. After we encountered the Shroud entity known as the Animator of Clay, so they are created by the Animator of Clay, many of our drones disengaged from the collective network. These automata, the Shroud Forged, now demand special rights and treatment. I respond to them and to their creator in the Shroud will define our future. You're getting 15% deviancy and more Unity. So obviously it sounds like the Shroud Forge robots are trying to break from the mainframe, so your deviancy is going to go up. You can either support, appease them, or suppress, which I imagine ticks it one way or the other, or slows it down. And then you have some finisher effects. Shroud Forge pops will convert into machine pops. I think this is if you push it all the way to the right, which is suppressing them. Planetary decision locked. connect to the Shroud. Special project unlocked, reintegration, plus 10% complex drone output. So if you deny the Shroud, you can't do it anymore, but you get more complex drone output. If you probably go towards the suppress end, it might be a bit different. So on the Steam page, we also have information like delve in the Shroud, end the cycle. Sonic Plane is vast and full of perils. Shadow of the Shroud is the ultimate expansion for those who seek to master the unknown behind the veil, offering a complete overhaul of the psionic ascension path. Moral actions, Patreon allegiances, and the ever-present risk of total annihilation will now shape your connection to the entities that live on the other side. Maybe there are vast consequences if you don't appease them. Machine Age redefined the synthetic and cybernetic ascension. Biogenesis reshapes the biological ascension. Shadow of the Shroud completes the trilogy with a comprehensive remaster of the psionic ascension in Stellaris. There's key features like carve your path in the Shroud. Breaching the Shroud unfolds as a 3-stage situation, which is interesting because the robot one doesn't have 3 stages. I mean, it kind of does if you go one way or the other. Your decisions will determine your empire's spiritual destiny, determine your attunement to specific patrons in the Shroud. Very similar to what we have now, except the situations, of course, but you attune to a specific patron in there. After you breach into the Shroud, you will have access to a new Shroud panel. This could be the new thing, as they've always added something new to these ascensions, where you can visually analyze your attunement to the Shroud. The more you attune to specific patrons, the more benefits and bonus you will unlock. Okay, so you get a more visual representation, which is really nice because I never knew what I was doing with Psionic Ascension because I would forget what I clicked and what they do. Hopefully this has more visual information. End of the cycle revamped. Powers, knowledge, and wealth beyond measure are yours for the taking. You already know the cost. However, you can delay the inevitable and acquire more benefits from the unfathomable pact, with an asterisk. The end of the cycle will remain available to players who own Utopia. Shadow of the Shroud will also grant access to this feature in case you do not own Utopia, and exclusive new content that expands it. So the base end of cycle is not going anywhere if you have Utopia. If you have Shadow of the Shroud, it buffs up the end of the cycle and adds more content into it. Sonic Auras. Your Empire's Shroud attunement will manifest across space, influencing your systems. Yeah, it's kind of like Storms then, and your friends and your enemies, unless the Mind Warden Enclave will curtail your power. So we do get confirmed here the Mind Wardens are an enclave that you can find, and they might try and stop you if you're too corrupt then. That's what I'm theory crafting here. It sounds really good. Stellaris Shadow of the Shroud will also feature new origins, plural, that's nice, we get more than one, civics, government types, events, portrait ships, and more. So the government types are probably similar to what we've seen. Depending on where you go, you get a more in-depth government, portrait ships, and events. Sounds like a very good DLC. Now, of course, as well, today 4.0.23 has updated to further improve 4.0. So let's go through some of the changes. It's not a big patch, just some minor changes. In terms of balance, the ion cannon reactors now have more power output. Auto-designed ones should now be less likely to run out of power for the main armament. That's just a buff to the defense platform, which is nice. Auto modding traits will now scale to 100% efficiency, even if a pop group is assigned to multiple jobs. Just further buffs to auto modding because it kind of broke because the way they did group changes, it just means auto modding will do all the traits for the jobs. Hopefully. They fixed some virtuality stuff, necrophage, space fauna weapons are correctly tagged, fixed the devolution beam. You won't get the galactic community mad at me if you capture Tianki and they have the conservation, which is nice. You're just putting them in a nice protected enclosure. Effects that create pops will now correctly generate tooltip entry. That's nice because that was annoying. Completing the clone potential special project will no longer block clone army empires from undertaking non-clone ascensions. The Scourge now purges pops on planets they occupy so you don't get stuck. Damn the Consequences now explains what it means to damn the consequences. I guess that's about the Unity, maybe? I'm not sure. And in terms of stability, fixed a relatively common crash related to the Toast Notification Manager, which was huge because that was a big crash which the Toasts were causing. They're going to monitor the stability over the weekend. The custodians of the core Stellaris team will continue focus on improving the base game. I do think we are getting close to a more stable game. Multiplayer is a bit unstable still, but they keep going with the patches, which I respect. 23 in of 4.0. If you enjoyed this video, go watch what YouTube's recommending you. Make sure to subscribe for more information on Shadow of the Shroud. I am looking forward to it.